Hello, welcome to episode 2 of season 2 of Laid Back with Betfair. I'm Tom Haylock with Dave Strehlau. How are you, mate?
Tommy, I'm well. Good to be here again.
That's good. Seats okay height this week, is it?
Yeah, well, what have you done something about your torso? I thought it might have just been you've got a bit of a compact torso.
Just put a bit of weight in the off season or something like that. Just condensed the chair last week. Anyway.
We've had the engineers come in. They've sort of stabilised the chair's foundations, so it should be right, mate.
Thanks. You're in the lay bin. Huge week coming up. We've got Moonee Valley, the Feehan Stakes, McEwen Stakes, a couple of Group 2s, a couple of listed races there. Randwick, really good meeting. Hard betting day. Obviously, the tramway highlights with Zaaki coming back. We've got the Furious and the Chelmsford. First of all, before we get into the racing, how was the Bucks party last week? How was Caulfield?
As far as Bucks parties go, it was actually quite tame. We had obviously a few drinks and went to a bar after, but it was just like a bit of a standard day. You know what I'm against with Bucks? Like
you put something in the lay bin from last Saturday.
If ever I'm a Buck, all right, we're probably gonna have to wait a while.
If you know any girls out there, just.
But what I just don't get is the Bucks where they just humiliate the Buck and make them have a bad time and make them scull drinks and just get sick. It's like, yeah, I want to remember, like, this guy's my mate. I want to actually have a good time with him.
The treatment of the Buck is in the lay bin.
Locked away under a ball and chain for the rest of his life. I don't want him to be crooking a gutter. So that can go in the lay bin, mistreating the Buck.
Early lay bin. Well, that's a good segue. What else you got for us? I've got a few. Do you want to go?
Yeah, live golf haters. Okay, so look, I'm not here siding with the dirty money.
So hang on, you potted Carlton supporters last week. You potted who else did you pot? You potted some AFL supporters last week.
Just have no idea
the Nick Dacos support.
Footy, but so live golf. Like it was funny. I saw Daniel Moore absolutely sent John Ralph packing on Twitter during the week because Ralphie was like, Cam Smith could have been, a legendary hero or whatever, but now he's gone to live. It's like, mate, if you got offered 5 times what your
career
5 times the money, what you're on for less work and probably less pressure, what are you doing, mate? Seriously, anyone that says they wouldn't take that money is an idiot.
I'd be happy with 140 mil. So if you're watching Betfair,
I play off 36 when we go.
You'd be able to. Don't think that'll work, right?
Hey, they need a Happy Gilmore on the tour.
There you
I'll
go.
get kicked off the tour by Doug.
Doug. You can afford your $6 lattes that you're putting in the bin.
Oh, well, that's it. $6.20 I paid for a latte downstairs. Now I know I'm ordering almond milk, which it's a little pretentious of me, but I'm looking after the gut. I'm looking after. You don't put diesel in a Ferrari, mate, and $6.20 for a latte. I know that 7-Eleven have gone from $1 to $2.
Yeah, inflation. So you're putting inflation in the bin.
Yeah, my teacher mates that we used to walk to 7-Eleven every day, they've just doubled their yearly coffee output overnight. But $6.20 for a latte is a bit stiff.
Wow. We got a couple from the tweets as well. The Ginger Wizard on Twitter put in small fields in feature races. So that's controversial. Probably the racing calendar and the fixture of these races probably goes in the lay bin from the Ginger Wizard there. We've got small feature races. The Feehan, very small. The McEwen, very small. What do you make of all that?
Oh, the Feehan's the one that stands out because you're getting a golden ticket to the Cox Plate, which in most people's point of view is Australasia's #1 race. It's the crowning jewel. It's the one that pretty much every trainer says they want to win. And here's, what do we got, 6 horses in it to get a win and you're in to a very select field. So, but they've spoken about the club, the fact that this year's probably going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back in terms of where it's placed in the program, and they'll probably move it next year because it's paid for having been moved. It's jammed in between 2 other mile races.
Everything needs a rehaul, the whole calendar of racing around Australia. I had one or a couple others, speaking of small fields and races, these races like the Concord and the Shorts that are now Everest lead-ups, essentially barrier trials. We've got 3 horses with Everest slots in it. They don't care if they win. They're just using them as fitness and barrier trials. So such an expensive and rich race has had a huge impact on these lead-up races that are essentially $500,000 barrier trials. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it is interesting. Like you'd probably note that wherever Nature Strip goes first up, he'll probably win, and then he'll probably tail off second up. You get a better price
Eduardo
for the Everest, and then he bolts.
Yeah.
Those lead-ins are now following a very similar trajectory each year, aren't they?
They're all the same horses. They're all caravan horses that go to the same races each season, and that's why this season might be a bit different with Marzu and the likes in the Everest. But
yeah.
There's a couple of ones. We'll talk on Andermatt as well coming up.
Yeah.
Two other lay-bins really quickly. No internationals in the Cox Plate. The Cox Plate's shaping up like Real World's not coming. State of Rest not coming now. Really disappointing from what looked an amazing race a month or so ago.
Well, one of the best stories of the Cox Plate over the last 5 years, it's been an international battle or an international
Or Winks, yeah.
coming over, yeah. But like even with Winks, you know, she beat Ben Battle. It was like a big like billing in terms of racing something coming from overseas. And obviously State of Rest last year with Animo will go down in history as one of the great jewels. So it is a bit disappointing, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
And the other one, I don't know if you saw this on Saturday, but went to the races with 7 or 8 guys trying to have some group bets, and none of them brought cash. That's in the lay bin. If you turn up the races with mates, bring cash.
The races is the only place in the world that I'll actually have cash.
You're prepared.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're not in the lay bin this week.
At least that I'll say here.
That's right. That's right. No comment. Speaking of small fields, let's get stuck into the Feehan Stakes, Moonee Valley. Soft 6 should be overcast, railing the true at Moonee Valley, and we're expecting the track to be leaderish. Even the track manager came out during the week and said hasn't been used on the inside for a couple of weeks or a while.
Since March,
Yeah,
the inside 5 metres has been protected. So that's a fresh pad. So, yeah, I love the fact that they've come out and said
It's
it. Like,
great, isn't it? You don't hear it very often.
The other week at Rose Hill, they didn't say, hey, the grass is shorter in the inside 3 lanes than everywhere else. We had to wait for the jockeys report to come back on that one. But it's good to come out and say it. And you know what? Like, people knock Moonee Valley like, oh, I hate betting there. It's one of my favourite tracks to bet at. I'm going to be shattered when they change the dimensions of it. But
Yeah.
But two,
You'll have the Caulfield inner track to worry about then.
Oh, yeah. The last 2 years, with a couple of outliers, it's played absolutely magnificently. So if there's going to be one where it plays on speed, you just cop it because for the whole part, it's played beautifully. So if the track manager says it's going to be on speed, it probably will be, though.
At least you know what you're working with. So
yeah.
Let's get stuck into the Feehan Stakes, Dave. And are you keen to have a bet in the race?
No, I'm going to stay out of the race. I can see why Mr. Brightside is even money because he's had that first up run and he's got a map where he can dictate. My only little question mark is I know Craig Williams is riding in magnificent form, but something I've found with him, when he's on a sole leader, he can go too slow. He's done that on Mr. Brightside at Flemington when Inspirational Girl, Damien Lane, was able to sort of travel up and out sprint him. He needs to use the fitness. He needs to get going at the 800 and try and bust them up. But I'll stay out of the race. If I had to have a bet in the race, I'd lay Earlswood. He's offered a similar setup to when he won first up at Caulfield, 1,600 metres, which you have to be wary about. He's off 26 weeks on Saturday as opposed to 22 weeks when he won at Caulfield. But he's had a bit of surgery in his time off. He's just had the one jump out. It's very soft. This is the horse on Saturday where the last 10 minutes, even 5 minutes, it's going to tell the story. If he's currently $4, but don't pay any attention to what's happened early. If he drifts late, he's got none.
So how do you play the race then? Are you laying him now? Or are you laying him later?
Well, you could put some up now and see if someone will match you. And then, because it's in the hope that he drifts.
And you think Mr. Brightside leads? Is that what you're referring to?
Who else does?
Ellswood, maybe. Yeah, it's tricky with such a small field. You'd think Mr. Brightside leads.
If
use his fitness as well.
If I'm the stable, that's what I'm saying. Use the fitness. You'll get it soft, but start building through your gears. 800 from home.
And they want a spot in the Cox Plate with Mr. Brightside, I would have thought. So
yeah, absolutely.
He's a Group 1 winner anyway.
Well, they've said that, they've done the genetics tests and stuff, and they think that 2,000 metres is his trip. So surely this is the race where they say, we get him in and then we get him right.
So you're laying Earlswood. I'm backing Mr. Brightside. I'm happy to be with him. He ticks so many boxes here. He just talked about maps, and we'll do an education part in a minute, but he just ticks so many boxes. The wetter, the better. Hopefully the rain comes for him. He's tough. He has that fitness edge. He has the speed advantage. I just think he maps okay, and he'll be winning. The others are all first up, and he's there to win. So happy to be with Mr. Brightside. He's short, but just looks the obvious there in race 4, the Group 2 Feehan Stakes. We move to the Group 2 McEwen Stakes. Again, a small and elite field here. And I think we're both siding with the same horse on top. The map looks really interesting, Dave.
There is so much speed in this race, isn't there?
I've got a theory about that. Do you want me to go now?
Yeah, go.
So everyone's seeing that speed map. There's 5 or 6 horses in the very small field that are on speed only horses. Now, I find, and this might be a segue, we can chat about this later in the speed map section, everyone has picked up on the fact that there's so much speed. Do jockeys with 5 or 6 horses first up in the race, do jockeys sit there and go, look out, there's so much speed, we've all got bigger fish to fry, let's not go too hard. Suddenly they all hesitate a little bit because the map's so obvious. If this was a Tuesday at Benalla, it can be completely different. But such a big race, I wouldn't be surprised if the jockeys are all just sitting there a little bit hesitant and it doesn't pan out as quick as expected.
It's not a bad call, but then to come for another angle is there's so much speed because the horses in the race are fast.
Yes. Yep.
So they've got good early gate speed. In the Congos, he's a fast horse.
He maps
Rothfire's, well, a lot of them do. It's hard. It's a hard race to map. Rothfire's fast. Zoo Style, he can only win if he leads and dictates, so they'll want to go forward. So the jockeys have a little bit of a say in how fast they're going early, but the horses, a lot of these horses jump quick and put themselves in the race. So automatically in the first furlong, you've generated speed just naturally.
Yep, fair call. And I reckon if Coolangatta can cross Zoo Style, the race is all over. I think that's the key to her. I don't want to see her sit outside lead at the back of a hot tempo first up and just be pressured by these older horses. But if she can cross, they won't know which way she went with 50 kilos. Her trial was enormous. I'm happy to be with her on top. I know she's a short price here, but Coolangatta for me on top first up. That Cranbourne trial, something else.
Very fast and very easy, 50 kilos as well. It is a very tricky map. I don't know where she gets to. It's one of those ones where we're not going to, it's an obvious statement, but we're not going to know until the race is run because it's hard to predict. And the one I want to be against is Zoo Style because he's a bit of a bully. When he failed last start, the jockey's comments was he's most effective when leading and then sprinting. So he likes to get, I know he bowls along, but he does like to get it on his own terms, particularly in the middle stages. So there's a lot of other horses in this race that are going to have some pressure, where even if he does get the front, he's not getting it easy. It's a 1,000-metre race. It's Moonee Valley. There's fast horses. If that's the case and he gets eyeballed, I think he'll probably fold up. I
agree with you. I'm happy to take him on as well. I know he draws well, probably the best mapped horse of those on speed, which is the Query. But if he cops any pressure from the outside, he's vulnerable. Also, I'm not sure he's beaten much. I know he's won 9 of 16, but you go through his biggest test was the Doomben 10,000 and he capitulated. I think he's a better horse on top of the ground as well. Added pressure, Damien Oliver's the right man for the job, but he beat Buller in the George Moore and then he beat Totally Charmed at Sunshine Coast before that over the 1,000. So I have a query a little bit on his depth of form, and I am with Coolangatta in that one, but really fascinating race. Anything else to add?
Nah, that's it.
Let's move on to the Atlantic Jewel Stakes, and what an interesting race this is. Good luck here. I've got a few that I'm playing at odds, Dave, but it's a very tough race. I could spec a few at odds. There's a couple of dual acceptors in Sydney as well. I'm leaning the way of Troach just because of the map. We're expecting the map to be, or the bias potentially to be on speed and favouring those on speed. Troach, fit, up and going, has that map advantage, and if I was forced to have a bet, I'd have something on him. But I could spec Mumbai Jewel drawn inside if she's here. The other one, Revolutionary Miss, too bad to be true last start, comes down from Sydney, a big price, trialled really well up against Mumbai Jewel in a trial in Sydney before that. So just a couple at value that I could play. But Troach, I'd be tipping on top. Which way are you leaning?
I'm going to have a bet in the race. I'm going to back Lady Laguna. I thought she was really good first up in the Quizette. In terms of to the 600, it was the fastest race of the day. She sat outside the lead. Of all the on paces, she was the only one that stuck on. And the thing today is she's going to roll forward again on a track that's going to suit her much better. She's obviously fitter second up, as a lot of these others are. But, IMLOVINYA was held up a little bit last start at Caulfield, but only just nailed Lady Laguna, who'd done all that work, and IMLOVINYA was able to finish off over the top after conserving energy early. The issue with IMLOVINYA this week is the map, and I'm going to lay her and be against her in this race and happy to bet around because did far less work than Lady Laguna last start at Caulfield and did finish off. But like I mentioned with that map, barrier 3, I think best case scenario is 2 pairs back on the rail, which is not great because you've got a fitter, not fitter, but you've got a horse that's second up as well in Lady Laguna that's going to be up there riding the speed. You've mentioned Troach will be up there riding the speed as well. So there's some good fillies that are going to be on speed in a track that's predicted to race to the front. If you're 2 pairs back the rail, well, geez, you're going to want to be good to win from there.
Great shout. I don't mind you thinking there in the Atlantic Jewel Stakes. Really good to see these fillies back because they dominated as 2-year-olds. The fillies were so much better than the colts. So a couple of races, Melbourne and Sydney, for the 3-year-old fillies that look really interesting. We head to the next race before we head to some wash-up and education stuff. Listed Chautauqua Stakes, race 7 on the program, 1,200 metres. Very, very, very tough race. I got no opinion here, but you got to play for us?
Well, a little bit. Firstly, it's disappointing Uncommon James is out for the spring, isn't it? Because he was going to be at this race. That would have added a lot more interest. I think Rangers is the one that's sort of semi in the market that can't win. There's others with bigger
is that
peaks.
Because of the barrier or just not good enough?
Well, barrier one's
lacks
not
upside.
bad. He could probably use fitness and park on the leader's back, but I think lacks upside, and there's others with bigger peaks. He's very consistent, but there's better horses in the race, so we need a lot of them to rate down. My bet in the race, so this is about 4:15 p.m.
Yeah.
So 4:35 at the G, Collingwood Geelong. So I'll have number 5, Jamie Elliott, first goal. I know he likes last quarters. He's kicked 17 straight in last quarters, if you haven't noticed. But
any other stats about Collingwood you want to bring up?
No, just Jamie Elliott, first goal.
Jamie Elliott, first goal scorer. And you're laying Rages for all the reasons you just said?
Yeah, I just don't. I think he's the one in the market that is too short.
No opinion for me. It's an impossible race there. Race 7. Let's get to the wash-up. I don't know about this title here, but talking of the Feehan Stakes 2020, Hugeador is the title. Awful name.
Oh, please. You loved it before when you first said it. You thought you were bloody Carl Barron.
I'm pretty funny. BSP 2021, BSP $22. Amazingly, when Humidor won the race 2 years ago, hit 200s in play. 11,000 was matched on him in play as well. So 200s in play, and he came from nowhere to win.
Well, I swear he was last, from memory, he was last on the rail with about 200 to go, and then he just absolutely exploded through a gap.
Yes.
Good training effort that was.
Great training effort, great win.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're a tennis man, Dave, but the US Open is on at the moment, and the next title is Grand Slammed. So we've seen some favourites get rolled and some short in play players get beaten. First one, Naomi Osaka, $1.20. She had $11,000 matched at or below $1.20 before she got rolled. And the other one, Goffin versus Musetti. David Goffin had $237,000 matched at or below $1.20 and went down, hit $1.01 in play and got beaten by Lorenzo Musetti there, who hit $100 in play. So just some data from the team there.
Oh, I'm not much of a tennis man, but I know when the Australian Open comes around, all my mates put on multis. When they have legs from the female side of the draw, they're always the one that let them down.
It's pretty inconsistent.
Favourites lose a bit.
I am a bit of a tennis
on
fan. Betfair. We should do some theories on that.
Is Kornikova still going around?
She might be, but not in the tennis court.
Okay. She's on the seniors still.
Who knows where to go with that. Let's get to Sydney Randwick. Really good day, Concord Stakes Day. Everest, as I said off the top, the Everest trials are continuing. You're with an interesting horse here that might have a bit of upside.
Yeah, I think Andermatt, if ever he's going to beat Eduardo's obviously a better horse. He's so much more. I know Andermatt could end up being a superstar. He's a good horse. Eduardo is a superstar. He's rolled gold. But if ever Andermatt is going to beat him, it's first up at Randwick. And they've kept him fresh. James McDonald went out to Hawkesbury to trial him. You would have watched the trial.
I've seen the trial. It was a very good trial.
Well, he jumped on the bunny and then he went about 15 lanes wider than the leader and he still ran his last 632.
Why do you reckon he did that? Just to give it a bit more of a test?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
The ground didn't seem better out there, but I don't know.
Maybe to just make it look sicker. It looks sick. He went wide and then he absolutely flew home. So it was a good trial. He goes like a bomb fresh.
I like Godolphin horses first up's my play.
Well, they're in the zone at the moment as well, 10 from their last 50. So I know that when we did the show last season, you were all over Godolphin fresh. So they've continued that as well. They're going super late. So I think he can track the speed. The thing with Randwick this weekend, the rail's 7 metres, but there is a very strong southerly blowing, and that is more important than the track condition because that's a tailwind in the straight. So if you can hook out early, like from the sprint trips, it might actually favour on paces because it's pretty much at their back from that shoot start the whole way. But also, if you've got a lethal turn of foot, you pull out at the 400 at the top of the straight, you get an absolute bloody
sail.
You get a wet sail at your back there. I was looking for something that wasn't rude. But you get a good shove along and you can rattle home. So I think that Andermatt can do that. And 4.5 kilos he gets off Eduardo. What did you make about his last trial, Eduardo?
You know what we talked about last week with looking at races, and your first thing that stands out here is the set weights penalties race. Eduardo's 118 raider. He's Endermat's 94 and he's only got 4.5 kilos. So,
Yeah.
as you said, it's not just about weights and measures here. Obviously, if they were both fit, you'd be backing Eduardo and whatnot. But Endermat's not really well off at the weights. Neither is Masked Crusader comparatively at the handicap record. But, yeah, Eduardo, I'm not sure what to make of him first up here. He's 9-year-old now. He probably leads the race, which gives him an advantage.
Yeah.
Masked Crusader trialled really well. Looks like he's back to his best. Probably gets back in the ruck. 1,000 metres too short. Bigger fish to fry. He'll get a slot. He's got a slot in the Everest, so he doesn't need to win. Malkovich is the other horse that'll be on speed. I actually think Malkovich will lead, and Eduardo will just cart along behind Malkovich. I'll give Malkovich a chance here. I found it a really tough race. I'd have Eduardo on top, Malkovich second. Maybe Andermatt and then Masked Crusader in the mix.
He's a bulldog, Eduardo. He's not the type of horse you'd lay in a million years. Goes forward, loves a fight.
Just back him second up against Nature Strip.
Yeah, exactly. But I did think Andermatt could get him. Like the point you make about the set weights and penalties, I mentioned he gets 4.5 kilos off Eduardo, and to the ratings, he's poorly weighted.
Yep.
But to what he can run up to first up in terms of like a raw figure he can produce, with that weight, it's very competitive.
Do you reckon he's a chance in an Everest?
Andermatt?
Yeah, they've got a slot. It's either him or Palele probably. So he might be here to make his claim for an Everest, which is the positive for him.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's easy to say now, but no, because you've got to beat Nature Strip. He's the best horse in the world.
But you're tipping him, or you just get to the race firstly, but you're tipping him here on Saturday in the Concord.
Yeah.
You're laying Eduardo, are you? Or you're not too keen to lay him? But if
not too keen to lay him. I know I put that there, but it was just more of a note. Yeah, I wouldn't. It's not the type of horse I'd lay.
No.
No.
Fair enough. Furious Stakes. We talked about the 2-year-old fillies. Now 3-year-olds, Group 2, over 1,200 metres, race 6 on the card at Randwick. Really, really interesting race. I don't think either of us are very keen to play here. I'm leaning to Paris Dior. Now, I'll go through the field. She's extreme, could be best horse in the race. Jules Barrier 10, Tommy Berry on.
I thought she trialled quite nicely, but
was a lovely trial. So I went looking for her.
Yeah.
She's probably the best horse in the race. Obviously beat Fireburn last time we saw her. She's a Group 1 winner. But just maps a little bit awkwardly, probably not here to win either. She's a belter, comes off a JJ Atkins win, great profile, maps well. I wanted to see more from her trial. She was quite average in that trial, I thought, and probably looking for further now.
Yeah.
Paris Dior's the horse that has upside, has the X factor, different kind of form.
The thing with Paris Dior is I thought before they went out in the Percy Sykes that Willinga Beast actually had a tougher run and almost got hurt. So I thought that she would have gone a little bit better, been a bit more dynamic first up Willinga Beast than what she was.
Yeah.
But she's trialling well, Paris Dior.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Paris Dior's a better horse on top of the ground as well, what she did on that heavy 10
Yeah,
in the Percy
yeah.
Sykes. So you got to weigh that up. But she's the horse I want to be with on top. Paris Dior here just draws well for Brenton Abdallah. She just maps correct, where the others there's a few queries about. I think Russian Conquest is trialling the house down, just maps awkwardly from barrier 11. Not sure if Mumbai Jules in the race. And then you've got the smart In Secret, who was fantastic last start and got to be in the mix, just draws barrier 12 too. So many queries.
The
about
other
this
one's
race.
like North Star Lash. She'll probably go forward.
In.
She'll be fitter again. I know In Secret was held up and went past her last start, but with that tailwind at the back, how soft is she going to get it up front there for a 1,200 metre field? I think she'll probably find the front pretty easily.
Yeah, and that gives her a huge chance. So watch the market late there with plenty of those horses first up. Betfair shows you plenty of market intelligence, so you can gain that from betfair.com.au. Let's get to the tramway, race 7, 1,400 metres, and we see the return of the Cox Plate second favourite here. Now that Anamo's come out and won in Zaaki, who draws well, maps well, and looks hard to beat. We talk about set weights and the nature of this. He's 118 handicap rated at level weights with the likes of Converge, who's 108. So he's well off at the weights. Zaaki, what do you make of the race?
Well, we've spoken about Zaaki quite a lot on the show because the back end of last season was all about Queensland, and a lot of it was a similar sentiment where we weren't backing him, but I wouldn't lay him. I'm not keen to back against him. I thought his most recent trial, 1,000 metres, very fast time for the morning. He sidled up, War Eternal ridden out. Obviously, he's a better horse than War Eternal, but Zaaki was cruising. Yep. Barrier 5, he just tags the lead prime candidate, goes forward. He just slots in. There's too little clear out. I think he'll get a lovely trail just in a blissful isolation, third, tracking that speed. And he's the best horse in the race, I believe. So I'm not going to back him because there's just a few other variables that I don't want to jump into. But
price is one of those.
Well, price. Well, that's the one, yeah.
But if he was 250, you'd jump in.
Definitely.
Yeah, so it's all about price with Zaaki. I agree with you.
Yeah, I don't want to lay him, and I'm struggling to find what could beat him. Profondo gets a nicer run this time in, and he covered some ground first up in the Wink Stakes. He's certainly not going to be not covered up. With the way he raced and sort of his tractability in that Wink Stakes, you thought he's going to be better with some cover, of course, and get him to relax a bit and finish off. And he maps to do that from a nice barrier for Abdullah on the weekend. So he's a little bit of a danger, but he needs to lift a fair bit to match Zaaki.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a danger with that fitness edge. He draws well, as you said, Profondo. He's a danger for me, whether I want to dive into the race. I mean, we haven't given a lot in this show, but it's just such a tough card.
Yeah.
If Zaaki got out to 230, 220, 230, I could entertain backing, which you might get on the fair. Profondo, clear danger, so you could even back them both. Happy to risk Converge and Ice Bath a little bit. Bunch finish in that Wink Stakes for Ice Bath last start, and kind of a slowly run race, and might have suited her a little bit. But
yeah, and you've said we haven't given away a great deal on the show, but I think there's an argument that that's smart. You don't have to be betting into every single race. I know people do things differently, but if you don't like something, there's no point betting in it just for the sake of it.
100%. And we're here to increase wagering IQ and educate people, so that's what we're here to do. So
Melbourne's in a little bit of an on-off week at the cycle at the moment as well. So next week back to Flemington was going to be a big card. So there's plenty to look forward to.
Can't wait for that. All right, let's get stuck into probably the feature, the Group 2 Chelmsford over 1,600 metres. This we might have a play here, and I think we both line up a little bit. I've got a Tommy 2 play, but we'll start with your bet in the Group 2 Chelmsford.
Surefire looks hard to beat. I know he's up in weight and up in class, but he's got the fitness edge on a few of these at least. But he showed first up that he's sharp. So, he was out 1 length above benchmark to the 600. He's home 10 lengths faster than benchmark. Second fastest last 4 and 200 of the entire meet, and it was a brilliant win. So I think getting to the mile, the barrier's a little bit tricky, but he actually did jump okay first up with that fitness on side. I wouldn't be surprised if he's just one off in midfield. I think he'll slot in just because there's not a whole lot of tempo. There's a lot of ambiguity underneath where I think he'll find his spot. James McDonald's obviously the right hands to be in for that. And just the way he finished off 1,400 metres first up, I think getting to the mile second up he'll gobble that up at Randwick.
I agree with you. I've got him on top. He's clearly the horse to beat. I don't have to replicate anything you said. His sectionals were great first up. He can only springboard off that. 1,600 metres looks ideal.
I forgot to mention as well that there was 4 1,400 metre races on that day. His was the fastest by over a second to the next best.
Huge win.
Yeah.
Great late splits as well.
Yeah.
I could also entertain Numerian here. What do you make of, before you drink your water or get stuck in, what do you make of Tommy Berry jumping off Mounga and onto Numerian?
What's happened there? Is
Mounga,
that a choice?
That's what I'm asking you. I don't know.
I don't know, but both
obviously rode him to win the Group 2.
Both Tommy and Nash this season are riding down on what their established percentages are. They're both hovering around that 8%, which is well down on career averages. So it's not like one inform's jumping off and one inform's getting on sort of thing.
But Berry had the choice. He rode Mounga his last 2 trials and 2 runs, so the last 4 times, and Numerian he's ridden the last 3 times, including the 2 trials this time in.
Well, you'd have to think here. Same trainer.
Sticks with Numerian. I think that's a reason why we're both keen to lay Mounga. Was pretty plain first up, off the bit a long way out. I know he's a horse that he looked a bit colty, to be honest. He did a lot wrong. He just didn't look interested after he got that little bit of interference and couldn't get clear galloping room. I couldn't back him on the back of that.
Well, I know he was held up a little bit, but I'm not sure he was even keeping up before that.
I agree. He was hard. Yeah. That's the style of horse he is. And Berry got off and said he might be better horse out wide with clear running, but he was pretty plain. Yeah,
and well, what's interesting is he didn't parade well. He paraded poorly. I'm no yard expert, but I watched the yards and you could tell that he was up on his toe. He was very anxious. He was sweating a lot. He happened to be picked at the yard. Had some
interesting
area, which is interesting, but he didn't parade well, and I'm not sure he's going that well.
So we're both laying
In fact,
Mounga.
I know he's not going well.
There you go. We're both laying Mounga. I don't think Barrier 5 suits him either. He'll be back in the ruck. He needs to get out. And Barry's sticking with Numerian. Tommy 2 play for me. Numerian on top. And surefire. So those two, Tommy Two-Play laying MOUNGA in the race, and you see it similarly.
Yeah, spot on.
That's all for the tips this week. We'll get stuck into our best bets in a minute, but we've got some education. Last week we talked about what we looked at first in terms of when the fields come out and how we start dissecting races. One of the first things we do, Dave, after we look at track conditions and all sorts of weather and stuff like that, is speed maps. Talk to us about the importance of speed maps and why you look at that first.
Well, the first thing you're looking at when you're looking at a speed map is the overall tempo of the race. So is it going to be slow, average, fast, and there's plenty of different numbers in between. But what that helps you figure out is who is going to be suited, because then you can look at where horses are in their preparation. If it's a fast tempo and you've identified a horse that's first up that quite often needs to run, is a good sit sprinter, well, you can get rid of that horse from your calculation. So working out the tempo, firstly, of the speed map before you even work out who's slotting in the where, that gets you to be able to eliminate horses that you think are going to be unsuited based on where they are in their preparation or the type of horse that they are. Some horses relish fast tempos. If I look at Farrago as a recent example, he come off a fast tempo, sprinted really well at Sandown, got a slow tempo the next start at Sandown, couldn't sprint with him. Then he got a fast tempo at Moonee Valley and busted the clock. So he's a horse that sprints off fast tempos, but when it comes to a sit sprint type scenario, he's not as effective. So the tempo of the race can often get you to factor horses in or get rid of horses in terms of the way that the race is going to shape.
Yes, definitely. And then you've also got, like, obviously barrier positions play a huge part in that, but also where the starting point of each track is, and that changes tempo dramatically as well. If they start on a bend, if there's a long run to the first bend and they give horses a chance to find their rhythm and find their spots, that has an impact. Obviously, what you look for, we mentioned it in the McEwen, for a perfect example, with so much speed on the race, everyone looks at that and it may tend to be a high-pressure race and suit those back in the race. Is that how you kind of think about it as well?
Yeah,
pressure.
It is. Yeah, there are examples where it's too high pressure.
Yeah.
For back markers.
I think
well.
that'll be the case with the Inferno potentially. If they do go hard, he'll be out of his comfort zone first up. So so many things to dissect there.
That's spot on. That'll be one of the ones where they'll come back to scale and say they actually went too fast. So you might think that a very fast tempo would suit those way back, but probably with a very fast tempo in a race like the McEwen, 1,000 metres, you just want to be just off them and covered up.
And I was keen to lay a couple of horses in the McEwen, but then you look at the speed map and they might just be the last horse standing. They might be just behind the speed, like Zoo Style, potentially if Coolangatta crosses and they go real hard and in the Congo goes forward as well, puts the pressure on, he could just be the one there. Yeah. The leaders have come back to him and he's just...
And there's so many variables that go into the overall tempo of the race. So you mentioned the start point, like, for example, 1,400 metres Warwick Farm shoot start. They're often slow, average run races. Then you got the wind.
You see Nash come wide.
Yeah. But then you got the wind, like, for example, Randwick on Saturday is a southerly. So down the back, from the 1,600 metre start, it's a headwind. So there's going to be no rush to get to the lead in those particular races. So they could be slowly run too. Then there's change of tactics. You look at where horses are in their preparation. You can often find, before an official change of tactic comes in, you can see a pattern of a horse and think, well, third up today, less pressure on paper, up in distance, this horse could go forward. Then you can back them early because you can see their pattern in the past. You've seen that there's probably going to be more intent than their first and second up runs in this race. Take the early price, the tactic notification comes through, and they're often the type of horses that the market can find in the last 10 minutes.
Chris Waller, king of that. Draws wide, inside barrier. So he draws wide, goes back, inside barrier, third up, sits behind lead. And
there was one that really stood out, Sentimental at Rose Hill, like last year. He put a change of tactic in 30 seconds before the race. I'd already backed her thinking that she was going to go forward.
Were you sweating when the change of tactics hadn't come through?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
It's worse when they don't announce them or they announce them and it doesn't happen.
And we've only talked about the race shape in terms of the tempo. Then you've got the speed map of who's going to sit where. For example,
who sits wide, who sits,
like I'd spoke about IMLOVINYA at Moonee Valley. So that particular track, barrier 3, people can often fall into the trap of, got a low draw. It can utilise that and go forward. But if there's speed drawn outside it and it hasn't shown early speed in the past, well, it has no choice but to flop 2 pairs back on the rail, and that's when you can be against things. Think of Bivouac. Obviously, Terry Bailey did his speed maps that time that Bivouac went around at Moonee Valley as a as a short price favourite, and he was
Don't mention
everyone
that.
in the world had mapped him to be in the coffin, and that's where he ended up.
Don't mention that. I got him. I got on him at a big price too early.
Yeah, yeah.
I just thought he was heading to the race, and he just
Yep.
did not find luck. Then you've also got a lot of people, and I know stables even think about this. Wide draws, no matter the race shape, can actually be beneficial, right? And people see barrier 12 and think, nah, awful barrier, but definitely suits. I like wide barriers on leaders. I'd much prefer nature strip drawn barrier 12 than barrier 2, for example.
100%.
So they just depends on the horse and the race shape as well. But leaders from wide barriers at certain starting points are really beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've spent five odd minutes talking about speed maps. We haven't even covered everything, and there's so many different variables that go into it that you can get wrong. So it's just one piece of the puzzle.
We might look at an example next week and continue this chat about speed maps. Might be an idea because we could talk about it for ages.
Yeah, my best idea about speed maps is being able to get rid of horses from my calculations and find horses that I'd like to focus on.
Love it. Well, let's talk a bit more about that and how you do them as well next week. Speaking of forgetting horses and putting a pen through them, your best lay of the day, we'll start with that.
I'm loving you. That's race 6 at Moonee Valley. Just from a map perspective, I thought Lady Laguna would be forward of, she will be forward of I'm Loving Ya. In running, we know that the track is predicted to play to those horses settling up on speed. And the scary thing about this lay bet is that Damien Lane and the Price Kent Junior Yard are completely airborne, 34% from 53 rides, which is outrageous. But what that does also mean is it's probably going to stay firm. So if you're against from a map perspective, then you don't have to chuck any money up now. I think it'll probably stay around that because from a data perspective in terms of the trainer-jockey combination, what the horse did last start going up in trip, I don't expect it to be a marked drifter, but it's one that I'd like to be against from a speed map perspective.
Yep, fair enough. I tend to agree with you there. Let's get to your best bet, and your first one comes up in race 8, a horse that I backed last start, first up for Annabelle Neesham. Yeah,
I found it a really difficult weekend to narrow down a best bet. I've made this my best bet just because I'm backing 2 horses. So
Davy Double.
So mathematically, I'm hopefully a better chance of actually taking home the
Davy
prize.
Double?
The Davy Double. Yeah, the Tommy too, baby. So I'm not laying Uncle Bryn.
Right.
Okay, because I know he's a good horse. He's coming out of the best race, the lead up to Lawrence. He ran well. I'm not sold Moonee Valley being his track. Look at his great performance at Sale. He balances up. He lets down. From a map perspective, he doesn't really have early speed. There's not a great deal of speed in this race at 1,600 metres. He's up in trip, but does he have enough early speed to use that nice barrier? I'm not sure. The 2 I want to back is Military Expert. Thought he was really good first up at Caulfield. I'd left him out of the quaddy. I wasn't quite sure about him.
Spoken to me before.
Yeah, but he went forward. He was challenged. He was able to kick through the line. His one effort at 1,600 metres was Group 1 heavy track. I think we can wipe that. His best career performance was Rosehill, 1,500 metres up on speed. I think he leads for Jamie Carr as well, and we're predicting that to be an advantage. So I think he's got the tactical advantage over Uncle Bryn. The other one's Shot of Irish. He hasn't won in God knows how long. But he was quite good first up at Moonee Valley. He was actually hard in the market. He was about $5.50 off a decent layoff and jumped really well, but then just eased back from the gate, ran home, race fastest, 6'4", 200 metres. I reckon 52.5 kilos on the weekend, a race lacking speed. He is a horse that's shown in the past that he actually does have some tactical versatility. So I wouldn't be surprised with that lightweight for him to press forward. And he does have a good record at Moonee Valley, Shot of Irish. I'll back both the 6 Military Expert and the 9 Shot of Irish in the race 8 at Moonee Valley.
Race 8, Moonee Valley there, the Davy Double. I found it very hard to stamp a best as well. I'm sticking with Coolangata. I know it's a tricky race, but I just love their trial. I just think with the 50 kilos, I hope she crosses to the lead. No better jockey for the job. And they won't know which way she went if she finds the front. So happy to be with her. I also don't mind my Tommy 2 play in the Chelmsford there with Surefire and Numerian. And because of that, I'm laying MOUNGA as my best lay of the day, race 7, number 1. I just thought he opened too short, $5, $5.50 there, Dave. So
yeah, I was going to make him my lay of the weekend as well, but I wanted to get a bit gutsier.
Oh, I like it. Well, speaking of gutsy, I did all right last week.
Oh, mate. You did actually. That was the triple threat and then the winner as well. That was lovely.
It was a fill up, which was nice.
I saw someone on Twitter saying you should get, it was Jackson Oldham, I should get double my money back from my lay because elation come so far last. Like when you get a lay that correct.
That's a good bet type.
You should get a double up.
It was good. I laid, who did I lay? Elation, I'm Thunderstruck, and Alligator Blood, which was nice.
Yeah,
and then
lovely.
Found the winner. So you also had the winner on top. Well done.
Yep, thanks, brother.
Thanks for joining me, mate. Another huge episode. Look forward to dissecting how we do speed maps a bit more next week as well. We could talk about it for ages. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you, brother. Hey.
Good.
Thanks, mate.
Been a pleasure. Join us again next week on Layback with Betfair. Gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-858-858.